Every day, someone with less talent, fewer resources, and fewer advantages than you wins. Why? Because while you were waiting for the perfect moment, they were building it. While you were questioning whether you had what it takes, they were sharpening what they had. Success doesn't come in waves. It comes in whispers. And those whispers are only heard by the man or woman who has trained their mind to listen. Napoleon Hill understood this. He didn't write Think and Grow Rich as a book of luck or hope. He wrote it as a code of transformation, a blueprint passed down from giants Edison, Ford, Carnegie, not to tell you what to chase, but how to become the one who never has to chase again. Because consistent success isn't a trick, it's not a hack, and it sure isn't magic, it's a state of alignment. It's what happens when your thoughts, beliefs, decisions, and actions are no longer in conflict, but marching in formation. Let me ask you something. Do you want success, or are you obsessed with it? Because there is no such thing as casual greatness. There is no casual genius, no accidental empire. Success, the kind that shows up every morning and pays dividends every night, is reserved for the relentless, those who build systems around their dreams instead of just wishing for them in silence. You see, Hill's secret wasn't just desire. Everyone desires, everyone wants the outcome. But he taught that burning desire, when made definite, becomes a gravitational force, not a passing wish, but a dominant obsession that bends your habits, rewires your focus, and makes your excuses impossible to live. Hill learned from Henry Ford, who was ridiculed, sued, and even taken to court for being too ignorant. And yet Ford, without a fancy education, did something none of his critics could. He built a movement because he had a definiteness of purpose so strong that failure couldn't get comfortable in his presence. That's the first principle. Definiteness of purpose. You can't hit a moving target. You can't wake up a kind of committed. Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But the caveat is belief. Belief is not passive. It's earned. It's not thinking positive. It's programming your mind so deeply with purpose that doubt doesn't even survive the front gate. And that's where most people fail. They speak goals but live confusion. They hope for discipline but worship comfort. And they think success is something they chase, not something they become. Want consistent success? Then become consistent in what you think, what you say, and how you move. Become consistent in feeding your mind the right ideas, in rejecting the noise of mediocrity, in sacrificing entertainment for elevation. Because Hill didn't just say, I have a goal. He said, create a plan. Then act as if your life depends on it, because it does. Let me be clear. This is not about overworking. It's about overcommitting to what actually matters. It's about becoming so clear on your mission that distraction feels like betrayal. You don't need another tactic, you need a transformation. You need to become a man or woman so aligned with their inner vision that nothing external can pull them off course. That's the secret. The real secret. It's not locked away in ancient libraries. It's not sold in seminars. It's in you. Waiting, but it won't reveal itself until you decide. Decide to stop negotiating with weakness. Decide to stop sleeping with mediocrity. Decide to stop saying someday when you know full well someday is the lie that buries more dreams than failure ever will. You must train your mind like a warrior because the battlefield is not out there, it's within. And until you master it, the world will always feel unpredictable. But once you do, the world bends. It bends to the man who has clarity. It yields to the woman who has conviction. Not because they demand it, but because the universe responds to rhythm. And your rhythm must be discipline. Don't chase motivation. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. And consistent success belongs to those who keep that fire alive when no one is watching, when it's raining, when it hurts, when it's boring, and when it would be easier to quit. That's when your future is being built in the shadows. Thomas Edison failed over 10,000 times to invent the light bulb, but he never kept score. He wasn't obsessed with outcomes. He was obsessed with consistency, because he knew that with enough consistency, breakthrough was inevitable. And that's exactly how success works. Not in leaps, but in layers. One habit, one belief, one unshakable moment of decision at a time. And yet, people still ask, how do I stay motivated? The real question is, how do I build myself into someone who moves with or without it? And Hill's answer was always the same, through autosuggestion. feeding your subconscious mind the commands of your vision until they override the default programming of fear, doubt, and limitation. Because you weren't born afraid, you were taught to play small, conditioned to follow rules designed for comfort, not greatness. You were programmed to wait for permission, to obey the average, to seek approval from those who've never built anything worth admiring. But your power begins the moment you start reprogramming. Every morning you wake up, you're either conditioning your mind or being conditioned by the world. And the world is noisy. It wants your focus, it wants your doubt, it wants your dreams on sale. So Hill said, guard your mind like a fortress. Because what enters your thoughts will shape your results, what you rehearse becomes your reality, so speak it, write it, feel it. Let your goals become so familiar to your mind that they feel inevitable. When you close your eyes, see it. When you speak, speak as if it's already yours. Because that's what Napoleon Hill taught us. The mind doesn't distinguish between what's imagined and what's real when fed consistently enough. And that's the edge. That's the advantage the obsessed have over the distracted. They don't just install the dream into their identity. So they no longer have to push themselves. They are the push. They no longer have to remind themselves. They are the reminder. It's who they've become. You want consistent success? Then stop visiting your goals on weekends like strangers. Make them part of your blood, your rhythm, your thinking. Tie your daily habits to your future self like they are inseparable, because every decision you make is a vote for the man or woman you're becoming. Look at the greats. Lincoln failed in business, lost in politics, and battled depression yet never stopped showing up. Walt Disney was fired for a lacking imagination, yet changed the world's imagination forever. They didn't have perfect plans. They had perfect persistence. They weren't super who betray their vision. That's the difference. The ordinary crave comfort. The extraordinary crave alignment. They want their life to match their mission more than they want it to match their current mood. And so they build structure, habits, rituals. Because when you run on emotion, you stall in storms, but when you run on structure, you move through anything. Discipline is love in action, love for your future self, love for your calling. And consistency is that love expressed over time. This is where 99% fall. They want peak performance without daily practice. They want financial freedom without internal order. They want the fruits of mastery without the roots of mastery. But Napoleon Hill made it clear, there are no shortcuts. There is only definite purpose, burning desire, and faith applied through plan and action. Let that settle in. Faith applied. That means belief isn't enough. It must be activated. It must translate into decisions, motion, movement, sacrifice. Belief must become behavior. And behavior, repeated, becomes destiny. That's how a man with no money becomes a millionaire. That's how a woman with no support builds an empire. That's how anyone, regardless of background, past or pain, rises. By showing up again and again, aligned with something deeper than comfort, something sacred, their purpose. And let's be real, this isn't easy. It's not supposed to be, because ease creates weakness. Struggle, when chosen, creates power. The kind of power that doesn't scream but radiates. The kind that walks into a room and changes it. Because the man who has trained himself to be consistent is a rare force. He can't be swayed by trends. He can't be seduced by shortcuts. He doesn't need applause. He's already validated by the battle he wins each morning when he gets up and moves forward anyway. So what do you choose? Another week of average effort and delayed dreams, or the beginning of relentless alignment with your highest potential? Because the truth is this, success is not an event. It's not a launch, a promotion, or a milestone. It is a lifestyle, a rhythm, a spiritual discipline dressed in action. And once you accept that, once you embrace that this game is won not in dramatic leaps, but in daily obedience to your higher self, you become unstoppable. You become a different breed entirely. Not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. Because you stopped outsourcing your power to circumstance and reclaimed it through consistency. You stopped needing the weather to be perfect to build your kingdom. You realized storms aren't interruptions. They're initiations. And the ones who rise are the ones who learn to build in the rain. This is what Hill meant when he said, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But here's the key. Most people never stay in the soil long enough to see that seed grow. They quit too early. they dig it up with doubt. They trade process for pleasure, growth for gratification. They sabotage their future because the present required too much patience. But not you. Not anymore, because you've come too far to crawl back into comfort. You've tasted the fire of your own potential, and now mediocrity will never satisfy again. Think about it. The Wright brothers didn't wait for someone to hand them a flight manual. They became the manual. They believed in their dream when the world laughed. When gravity said no, they said yes again and again. And history was changed by two men who simply refused to let failure speak louder than faith. You want consistent success? Then you better build a consistent you. Not a perfect version, but a disciplined one. A version who shows up every day not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because the mission demands it. Because legacy doesn't respond to mood swings, it responds to momentum. Let's talk about clarity. Because clarity is power, clarity cuts through noise, it eliminates distraction. And in a world that profits from your confusion, clarity is your revolution. Most people don't fail from lack of potential, they drown in indecision. They get lost in options, in opinions, in the chaos of trying to please everyone except the person staring back in the mirror. But Hill taught that definiteness of purpose is the first pillar of wealth. Not just financial, but spiritual, mental, and emotional. So ask yourself right now, are your daily actions in harmony with your deepest value? Or are you betraying your greatness with busy work, half efforts, and excuses dressed as reasons? Because clarity is not something you find, it's something you claim. You carve it with reflection. You protect it with boundaries. You enforce it with action. And once you have it, you don't let anyone, not even yourself, talk you out of it. This is the point where the old you starts to resist, because the old self doesn't want to die. It wants to survive in your patterns, your doubts, your comfort zones. But if you're serious about success, real, lasting, unshakable success, then the old you has to go. That version of you who waits for validation, who seeks motivation instead of creating it, who scrolls endlessly instead of building intentionally, that version doesn't get to come with you. You thank them, you love them, but you outgrow them because evolution requires elimination. You can't become extraordinary by holding on to ordinary habits. You can't walk into destiny dragging your distractions. At some point, you have to choose your dream or your drama, your purpose or your patterns, your future or your familiarity. Hill taught that success belongs to the few who are willing to pay the price. And that price is not just hard work, it's inner work. It's the daily battle of saying yes to alignment and no to compromise, of becoming so obsessed with mastery that mediocrity can't find a way in. Fights, be honest, your results are not a reflection of your intentions. They're a reflection of your standards. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you tolerate. And if you tolerate chaos in your mind, you'll see chaos in your life. If you tolerate half effort in your routines, you'll receive half success in your results. This is why Hill's message wasn't about surface change. It was about identity transformation. From a wishful thinker to a deliberate creator. From a wanderer to a warrior. From someone who hopes things get better to someone who makes them better. You already know what to do. You already feel the pull. What's missing isn't knowledge. It's commitment, and commitment isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It shows up quietly, repeatedly, relentlessly, until the dream that once felt distant is now your normal. Because when you move in alignment with purpose, the universe has no choice but to respond. So now we reach the edge where most people stop, where the fear gets louder, where the doubt starts to whisper again, where the old patterns beg you to turn around and play small just one more time. But you're not most people. You've walked through the fire of uncertainty. You've seen the lies comfort tells you when your calling gets too loud. You've stood in the mirror and faced the hardest truth of all, that your results were never anyone else's fault. They were yours, and now, so is your redemption. Because once you realize that the same mind that once made excuses can now build empires, everything changes. You are no longer a prisoner of your past. You are the architect of your future, and the bricks you built with, they are the bricks of daily discipline, unwavering vision, relentless faith, and a refusal to negotiate with your greatness. This is what Napoleon Hill wanted you to understand. That success, real, consistent, soul-deep success, is not a destination. It is a becoming. And you become it not by waiting, but by working, by deciding again and again that your dream matters more than your distractions, that your destiny matters more than your doubt, that your impact matters more than your ego. You want to live a life most people only fantasize about? Then be willing to do what most people won't. Wake up when it's still dark. Study when it's inconvenient. Move when it hurts. Speak life when fear says stay silent. And trust deep in your bones that every sacrifice is building a future that excuses could never touch. There's a version of you that already has what you're chasing. They already breathe with purpose. They already walk with certainty. They already think in alignment, speak in conviction, and act with unstoppable force. And every disciplined moment pulls that version of you closer into reality. Every time you reject the lesser path, you are becoming. Every time you say not today to weakness, you are evolving. Don't look for results tomorrow if you can't honor the process. Don't wish for success if you won't build the systems that demand it. The dream is yours, yes, but the responsibility is too. And once you accept that, you are free. You are free from waiting, free from approval, free from the illusion that you are not ready. Because readiness isn't a feeling. It's a decision. And you decide right now, do I stay average or do I ignite everything inside me that I've buried under doubt? You were never meant for average. You were not born to shrink. The same spark that burned in Hill, in Carnegie, in Lincoln, in Disney burns in you. But it will only roar to life if you feed it, fuel it, fan it with the wind of courage and the breath of action. Don't let this be another video you watch, another idea you collect, another high you chase. Let this be the shift. The day you drew the line and stepped into your calling like it was sacred, because it is. The day you stopped living like your time was infinite, because it's not. The day you became who you were always meant to be, a force, a leader, a builder of legacy, not just lifestyle. A creator of consistent success, not because of luck, but because you finally realized the truth. Success is not something you seek, it's something you become. And now it's your turn, not tomorrow, not next week. Now burn the ships, eliminate the plan B. And step into the fire of your vision with nothing held back. Because Napoleon Hill gave you the secret. Now it's up to you to live.